Seems that our budget now is much on debt servicing, and I'm wondering, is there any? Do you think there is any future for us?
I would have wanted to be very optimistic. As a Nigerian, I love this country and I would like this country to do well because this country is well blessed. I have been to a few other places and I can't see any place that is as blessed as Nigeria. So, in my mind, I would have really wanted to be optimistic about the question you have asked me, whether I see a future for us. But if I look at the empirical data, if I see what is happening in Nigeria, unfortunately, in all good conscience, I cannot tell you I am optimistic about the future of Nigeria. And I can give you some examples as to what is dampening my spirit. Number one, when the current government came into power, they embarked on what they call reforms. Good enough, you need to reform. But these government reforms, I don't understand them. The reasons why I don't understand these current government reforms are number one, a reform is to make a process better, is to make something better. A reform doesn't complicate the process, doesn't make it more difficult, doesn't add hardship, does not increase the pains, does not make prices to be more expensive. That is the result. Then it's not a reform at all. You're actually destroying the process. It would have been better for you to just allow it to be the way it was before instead of touching it. Because if you are reforming anything, it has to, the result, the outcome has to be for the better. Now, if we interrogate what this current government is doing and calling it reforms, let us see whether the pass mark, the bar, the pass mark for reform is crossed. Number one, the famous statement that the president, Mr. President, made at his inauguration was fuel subsidy is gone. If the government calls that a reform, then it has not crossed the threshold for a pass mark for a reform. Why? Because as at the time that Mr. President made that famous speech, we were paying about 180, 195 naira per liter for petrol. And today, petrol is topping 1,000 naira. 1,000, 150, 200, 300, 1,500, depending on where you are buying. On that count, it means the reform has failed because price has increased. On the date that Mr. President made that speech, Nigeria's 4 refineries were dead. As we speak today, 18 months, 18 solid months into his tenure, Nigeria's 4 refineries remain dead. So, if fuel subsidy is gone, is a reform, that reform is problematic because the reform has only dealt with the demand side of the fuel sector in Nigeria. It has not touched on the supply side because Mr. President needed to have asked himself, how did fuel subsidy even become a problem in Nigeria? And the only reason that fuel subsidy became a problem in Nigeria is because we were importing petroleum products. And Mr. President needed to ask himself, how did we come about importing petroleum products? The answer is that we have 4 refineries with 445,000 barrels capacity that are dead. So if he wanted to reform that sector, that is where he should have started. He shouldn't have started with fuel subsidy, which is a fallout of dead refineries. For him to now go and deal with fuel subsidy and do nothing about the dead refineries, his own reform is dead already on arrival. That is number one. Number two, Mr. President says, let us unify the forex market. Let's have one exchange rates. Immediately, the exchange rate moved from 460, which was the official rate then, and about 600, 700, which was the parallel market rate, to $1,700 today. That was a reform. The reform has only added hardship to Nigerians who are importing goods and services at more expensive rates than the Buhari government. If that be the case, the reform has failed already. But for that reform to have succeeded, the president needed to also tackle the real issues. The real issues are, why is Nigeria's naira? You need 1,700 units of Nigeria's naira to get only $1 United States dollar. Why is that so? There are two answers. Answer number one, we are demanding too much dollars. Too much naira is chasing too much dollars. And in the simple laws of demand and supply, if there is too much demand for a product, the price will go up. So as we speak today, Nigerians are in the market looking for dollar to travel abroad, dollar to pay school fees, dollar to do medical, dollar to import cars, dollar to import petroleum products, dollar to import military equipment, import medical equipment, import food, import everything. That is why the dollar is strong against the naira. That's number one. Number two, we are not getting enough supply of dollars. Because again, in the simple law of demand and supply, the higher the supply of a product, the lower the price. So if we're getting a lot of supply of dollars into the Nigerian economy, the price of the dollar will fall. We're not getting enough supply of dollars. So for a proper reform to have taken place in the forex sector, Mr. President needed to deal with the causative factors of why the naira is weak. Now, let us ask ourselves, for the past 18 months that this government has been in power, have they done anything that will reduce the demand for dollars? Is there anything they have done? I mean, if you remove Dangote refinery out to say, okay, with Dangote refinery, we are no longer demanding dollars to import petrol. Outside that, have they done any other thing to reduce the demand for dollars? We are still importing food. We are still importing machinery, military equipment, medical and pharmaceutical products, and all of that. Again, we will ask the government, have they done anything to increase the supply of dollars in the Nigerian economy? Answer is no. The crude oil we are producing, they are still allowing people to steal it. Our manufacturing sector is dead. So how can we export to make dollars? Our farms are empty because farmers have been driven away from the farm. So how can we produce enough food to eat and to export and make money? We're not exporting anything. This government has not done anything that has encouraged export of anything. So you can see that that policy of forest unification was one-sided, dealt with only the demand side, didn't deal with the supply side, is dead already on arrival. The same thing with electricity subsidy. This government increased electricity subsidy from like 65 naira to 265 naira now for band A people, right? But the same government has ignored the fact that they came in when Nigeria was producing 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts of electricity. This is so small electricity that it cannot carry Nigeria's economy. It's impossible. It's like you want to use a 5 kVA generator to carry 10 ACs. Immediately you switch on those 10 ACs, the 5 kVA generator will just switch off, which is the national grid collapsing. It's not enough to power the economy. So if Mr. President is interested in reforms, he should ask himself the question, why should Brazil, an equivalent economy like ours, with more than 200 million people, be generating and supplying 150,000 megawatts of electricity per day, and we are suffering with 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts with frequent collapses? I have not seen any concrete action by the government in dealing with power supply. So this reform also is dead on arrival.
Okay,